Welcome to All About Money on HKIBC. I'm Isabel Wong. Local bus operator Hong Kong Exchanges and Clearing released a report last month citing challenges of using blockchain for securities clearance and settlement. The report even said the technology is ill-suited for financial market transactions. But speaking in an interview last week, the bus operator's chief executive said they are exploring blockchain solutions.
We just announced last week that with digital assets, we will jointly develop northbound post-trade blockchain settlement processes, because in that particular segment, blockchain can solve unique problems that industry faces. If it works, we could potentially expand it into other businesses.
Let's bring in Kirsten Roy-Reid, Next Level Consulting Compliance Director. Kirsten, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
It's nice having you. So let's talk about Hong Kong X report. So basically the report titled Financial Technology Application and Related Regulatory Framework, they were citing some challenges using blockchain in the financial market transactions. And the report also focused on slow trade confirmations. They were saying, like, if one block is generated every 10 minutes, 24,000 transactions are stored in an hour. It's too slow. So what's your take on this?
Yeah, that is too slow. But there are different types of blockchain. So I think part of the report and some of the other discussion around it has been around specifically around Bitcoin. And I would agree that Bitcoin would be too slow for what they would want to achieve in terms of their settlement and matching type process. So I think there could be other types of blockchain technology out there that would be better suited to be able to handle those sort of capabilities in those transactions. So I think, where Hong Kong Stock Exchange and other people are looking at blockchain as a solution, we have to evaluate all the different parts along the chain and work out what's best. So I think it's still a positive step in terms of being able to explore these technologies and working out which is the right one.
Some of the some other blockchain technologies that you mentioned might be better suited. Like, do you have any examples?
This technology is evolving literally as we speak. So there's developers working on different, what we call protocols, which is just a different type of blockchain. So some of those protocols, for example, like there's one called Komodo, which might be focusing on, a high number of transactions. But there's other protocols that might focus on privacy, for example. So where, we may not want our date of birth or something like that out there on the blockchain or something like that. So it will focus on making sure there's private information kept and stored in a secure manner. So they really need to work out, what they need to keep on the blockchain, what's on the off the blockchain, and work out which type of protocol is going to be best for what they need. And
so where are these technologies right now? Like, for example, you just mentioned a blockchain that could protect our privacy and another blockchain that could focus on the speed. Number. Is there one that has both?
No, that's also up for debate. I don't know. There's a lot of sensitivity around having particular protocols or blockchains that are anonymous, because that means there's other risks involved around, money laundering and stuff like that. So if we have a bad guy trying to get money from A to B, then a regulator or someone who wants to do the right thing obviously doesn't want to make sure that bad guy gets the money. So there is a lot of sensitivities around the privacy type protocols that we're seeing, but at the moment there's probably some that are focusing on both, but it's not there. It's not there yet. We're very early days, and this stuff is literally changing as we speak. They're still testing it, and this is a challenge for not just the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, but when we have clients or we talk to other people that have existing businesses that want to move on to the blockchain. That's often one of the big dilemmas: is which type of blockchain is best for their business, because it's not a one size fits all, and some might be wanting to go for stability. There's different aspects, so it depends on the functionality you want.
So in terms of privacy concerns, obviously the report also mentioned that too. And in order for wide blockchain adoption in the finance industry, like, what is still missing in Hong Kong and to encourage the growth of blockchain?
This is an interesting one. There is a lot of debate, and it's not just Hong Kong. This is actually a global thing in a lot of different countries. But how do you get adoption to be higher? Blockchain is something that people hear a lot about. There are a lot of misconceptions out there, which I think is a little bit dangerous. So I do think think, education and learning for people day to day, I wouldn't want my parents, for example, to go out and buy some Bitcoin or Ethereum or something like that. So I do think education and training and awareness is very important around adoption. The other key thing that's starting to come through is just around ease of use. So it's getting a little bit better, but to be able to go buy some Ethereum, a Bitcoin, or go buy Cardano or whatever, whichever one, or XRP, whichever one you want to buy, the process to do that has to be easy. And at the moment, there are challenges for an everyday person to be able to get on board and do that. And some people, it was interesting. I was at the Hong Kong Chamber of Commerce event last week. People don't really know, and they had just to backtrack a little bit. They had a crypto crazy hour, and I talked to a number of people there who want to learn more about blockchain, but they actually don't know where to start. So even having a crypto wallet, they don't really know what that means, where to go, and how to get started and so forth. So I think ease of use to be able to do that. Adoption scalability is also a big thing as well. So that touches on what you mentioned just before around the Hong Kong Stock Exchange wanting to address certain, issues in the process where, traders, whoever, in the settlement process, it has to be able to handle a high number of transactions. And in that particular example, timing is also key. So there's a 4-hour, I think, settlement period between the two, on the northbound route, which is between Hong Kong and China. And that's very, very tight. So there has to be scalability around it. Another thing that is kind of crucial to the whole process as well is, regulation. So for people to be able to enter the market, and also for people to be able to, that are already involved in the ecosystem, there has to be rules around it. We can't just go and do what we want. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, there could be, financial loss, there could be reputation impact and all those sort of things. So we are seeing more introduction come in various countries, and I mean Hong Kong's not alone in that. They've also made some announcements recently as well on that.
So recently, earlier this year, actually, Hong Kong Stock Exchange Chief Executive Charles Lee also said that blockchain is more suited for use in stock borrowing and lending. Can you tell us how that could work?
So one of the key functionalities of a blockchain or a distributed ledger technology is a smart contract functionality, right? So that's literally kind of almost, I'm going to use very simple terms, as the label said, it's a contract between two parties, right? So we've agreed to do XYZ on XY date. So a blockchain smart contract is set up to do that. So when you take that blockchain technology and you take what's happening with the stock borrow lending process that already exists in Hong Kong and also in other locations, that can be applied to blockchain technology. And that can be an automated process that's transparent to the two parties involved, is also immutable, and it's also, you can't change it in any way, which is the immutable function. And you can also automate that. So that's one of the key benefits for at the moment in the current process. And I can't speak for all companies involved, but I'd be willing to bet some of them have quite a few manual processes. So to be able to automate that more, make it more efficient, timely, secure, and a proper audit trail around it, I mean, that's kind of a win-win for most scenarios. But, to Charles Lee's comments, it does need to be explored properly to make sure there's no other additional risks involved. Sometimes when you introduce this new technology, you have to ensure that nothing else gets broken at the same time. So you might fix one thing, but not the other. We don't want that to happen, especially when it comes to financial transactions.
True, yeah. So, but Charles Lee also said that blockchain is not really suitable for trade matching operations.
Yeah,
what do you think?
I'm not sure I necessarily agree with that. Sort of what I touched on before. There's new forms of blockchain coming through. So whether it's now or down the line, I think it could still be applied. Trade matching is, basically, if we agree to buy, 10 pairs of shoes or something like that, but I might accidentally hear 8, for example, because I'm going deaf or whatever. So you would, make sure you have an agreement, there's a confirmation, and then there's a settlement process on the back of that. If those two factors don't match, then it's not going to automate and kick off a process. And then we'd actually have to pick up the phone and go, okay, no, we actually agreed something else, and then you agree to fix that. So I still think, from what I've seen in my 20 odd years of banking experience, looking at some of this stuff as well and feeling and seeing some of the pain, I still think there's opportunities there. It might come down the line though. We're not going to have all the answers in one go. And I do think taking one piece of the process that's got some pain points around it is a good way to start and explore the technology and then see how it works down the line to make it more of an end-to-end process. But sometimes you can't bite too, you can't take too big a bite, otherwise it's just all going to fall down.
True.
So yeah, that's my view anyway.
Like you said, like you've been in the banking industry for 20 years.
Yeah.
So obviously now the Hong Kong banking industry, they can't operate like they did 20 years ago, right?
None of us can.
Where do you see the opportunities where they can integrate innovation in the industry?
Into the industry, I mean, I think trade matching and clearing is a good one. The stock borrow system as well. I do think, and there are a lot of pain points around this, and I think probably a lot of the people listening may agree with this. The whole KYC onboarding process is very challenging, and that's often cited, as a key challenge. So, supplying all those documents, the paperwork, proving your address and so forth. There's a number of tools, really good tools out there that can help that process. So instead of, you supplying that same information 2 or 3 times or whatever it may be, then, it's stored once in a secure manner and then it could be shared. So there's a lot of scope for doing that. And the amount of paper that's involved with some of those processes, it has to change. So we can't keep doing what we were doing 20 years ago. And if we don't look to innovate, then, and this is not specific to Hong Kong or anything like that, then some banks and other companies probably will get left behind. So like a Kodak or a BlackBerry or something like that. But at the same token, people hear the word blockchain and there is a fear of missing out and there is a specific term around that. So you have to make sure it's the right thing. So that's where I think Charles Lee's comments around, we have to explore and you have to do it in the right way. We can't rush into it.
All right, we'll continue the conversation in a minute.
Sure.
Well, Kirsten will be staying with us, but still to come on the program. Hong Kong's de facto central bank recently launched a blockchain-based trade platform. What does that mean to the future of banking? Do stay tuned. Kirsten, in the first half of the program, we talked about Hong Kong Stock Exchange report that they were citing challenges to use blockchain, but in a twist, I wouldn't call it a dramatic twist. No, in Hong Kong Fintech Week, they recently introduced their first blockchain platform in collaboration with digital assets. What do you think? What kind of message do you think they're sending here?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call it a dramatic twist. I think the Hong Kong Stock Exchange there's a number of articles out there that they've been actively looking at technology innovation for a couple of years now in terms of a roadmap on how to be more innovative. As we talked about earlier, you can't operate the same 20 years ago the same as today. So it's no surprise that they have been looking at potential blockchain technologies. Digital assets has been used by the US, the DTC are also using that as their potential platform. And then I think it was last year, Australia also came out saying that they were looking to use digital assets as well as a new platform blockchain provider to help the overall process. So there's been hints there, so I wouldn't call it dramatic. I do think it's a very positive sign that they're willing and wanting to look at this technology because it is innovative. There are lots of ways it could potentially be used. So yeah, I think it's a positive start. We have to start somewhere, right?
So investors who trade northbound stocks, they are usually limited by the time. The settlement cycle of the mainland. They're only 4 hours.
It's very, very tight.
Very limiting. So how do you see the blockchain technology will help with this?
I think it will help a lot in terms of automation and the details around it. So 4 hours is incredibly tight. Most other countries around the world either operate on a T, which is a trade date +1 or a +2 cycle. So to have a same day +4 and with a 4-hour window, it is really, really tight. So where you have got technology that offers and provides more efficiency, especially around the timing, then that is obviously a critical component to be able to do this. So I think that's why they have looked. Is this an option to try and help the overall process?
So in Hong Kong Fintech Week, it's not just Hong Kong Stock Exchange who made an announcement.
No.
HKMA also made an announcement about launching their new blockchain-based trade platform with 12 banks. And what do you see this significant move in the blockchain industry?
It is definitely a significant move. So I think there was 3 key announcements during the Hong Kong Fintech Week. So I think they've been saving them all up. So no, this one has also definitely been in the works for a while, to be honest, but it went live on the 31st of October, I think it was. So to have 12 Hong Kong banks to participate and collaborate together, I think is a key progress where, the culture is being developed and, the collaboration is there. So I think it will help the trading platform. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes as it progresses, matures throughout its life cycle.
So in terms of these announcements, what other implications do they have on the fintech industry in Hong Kong?
I think it signals to everyone that, there is a culture there that's innovative and they're trying to be more innovative. We're seeing that in a lot of other countries as well. So technology can be used, and I am a compliance person, so I have a naturally more risk-adverse way of looking at these things naturally. So, it does have to be looked with caution to make sure we're doing the right thing. So you don't want to open up the door for something else bad to happen. So that has to be taken consideration, and it might not, meet everyone's needs in the process. So that's where communication amongst those 12 banks are really key. So you might have a smaller bank might have different challenges to a bigger bank, for example. Some banks might have more language issues versus another one, and there's other considerations to take into account. So that's where having that round table and being able to talk through those issues freely and discuss them, and make or develop something that's going to work for everyone, I think is very important. So it's great to see that happening.
Yeah, so obviously one of the challenges that the fintech industry has is always the regulated environment, the tightly regulated environment in Hong Kong. So what do you think, like your clients, or what do you think the fintech industry wants from regulators?
They often want more guidance, right? Some of these regulations at the moment are designed for products that already exist. And when you have new technologies like blockchain come into the picture, none of us, including the regulators, don't really know how to handle that. So the answer is not always clear to start off with, right? So I think in that environment, when you've got these financial technologies coming through, that collaboration and communication is really key. Sometimes it can be very difficult to get, answers and clarity, and often people go to the lawyers and stuff like that, but they also find it very difficult because it's not black and white, especially when it comes to a new form of technology. So yeah, it's challenging, but it's a process. So, you have to walk through it. And, I know a number of companies that are doing quite some, different and new innovative things in Hong Kong. And if you go and do those in isolation without talking to the regulator, at least approaching them, then you're not going to get that feedback, whether it's one-on-one, and then they can develop more broader regulations to be able to suit the new form of technology coming through. So whenever we talk to, people, it's like, you don't just go off and do something on your own. Engage. Because otherwise you're going to get in trouble if you don't.
I do agree. So in terms of the blockchain industry, obviously it's not just limited to the banking industry.
No.
Right? Do you have any examples, like any fun examples?
What other
sectors are using blockchain?
Yeah, fun.
Like I've had blockchain music festivals.
Yeah, there's music festivals. I mean, there's blockchain. There are actually live examples of blockchain event companies who will use your ticketing using the blockchain, which makes sense. Other fun examples are like they're now using blockchain to use for diamonds and stuff like that, the grading of reports. That's kind of a fun example. There's more use cases happening and being implemented all the time. These are usually, blockchain usually has to start with a business need, right? Like the Stock Connect one with the 4-hour time frame to be able to do things. But there's a lot of, for me, a lot of humanitarian things coming through, which I think are very important. So say like Syrian refugees who lose all their ID documents and stuff like that. So they're trying to put or identify that person on the blockchain, and then they can actually use their information that they got from that to go and get food stamps, for example. And that's actually a UN program around food chain program on the blockchain. So I think those examples, they're not necessarily what I would call fun just yet, but
meaningful.
But more meaningful. If you want to talk about real fun, the real fun one that comes to mind is crypto kitties. I'm sure you heard about that one. So and that one kind of did start out of, I won't say as a joke, but that took off. So that's probably the one example. But there's other things happening all the time. Like, I was reading the other day, Porsche are now using blockchain to unlock and lock car doors and stuff like that, because they had an issue where things could get hacked and so forth. Blockchain or DLT technology obviously has a lot more security to offer. So that's another use case. I might the next time we speak, maybe there'll be more fun ones.
Yeah, because it's still evolving. There will still be new things developing, right? So, but then as much as we can probably have some fun with blockchains, obviously we need to have fun with caution. So coming back to the Hong Kong example, like HKMA's eTrade Connect platform, they are saying that they want to enable cross-border trade financing.
Yes.
It sounds convenient, but it also sounds like a disaster, like a privacy data leak in the making. So is there any way to ensure 100% safe collaboration there?
Again, I'm a compliance person. I never like using the word 100%. But I do think there's kind of two elements to this, right? So one, if you've got your financial transactions on the blockchain and you're doing a trade between, say, Hong Kong and the UK, I do believe that the information that's on the blockchain to facilitate those transactions would be 99% safe, because I can't bring myself to say 100% safe. But the issues that I would see more around it is having, obviously that data has to be stored somewhere else before it gets actually on the blockchain. So that transmission of data on either side in terms of the systems, I'd be more worried around what happens there. But that risk happens today. But the actual information, when it's on the chain itself, I would be more confident and feel 99% safer than I would with anything else out there at the moment, to be honest.
So I know you were recently at Hong Kong Fintech Week as well, and when we talked about 3 announcements. Can you tell us about the third announcement?
The third one was...
What does it mean to you?
Yeah, what does it mean to me? I found this one personally more interesting because it was a bit more specific to blockchain and the wider question around regulations. So that's where the Hong Kong SFC, the Securities and Futures Commission, announced some guidance coming around virtual assets. So this is sort of the first time where we have seen a term used around, and I don't like the term cryptocurrency, but virtual assets has now got a term, and they gave a conceptual framework for people to try and have some guidance around it. And then as part of that, they also designated some guidelines on platform operators and invited various platform operators to participate in what they call a sandbox framework. So that means the entities involved within that can operate and do things to see how things are going, and then the regulators can look at it and then go, okay, this is how it might work or might not work, and from there they can actually develop regulations and guidelines. So I think for me, I found that announcement really important because it's the first time we've seen a proper not a proper definition, but a name for this blockchain stuff that is going around.